Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something that affects literally every single one of us, rest. We're going to unpack some cutting-edge biological sleep techniques designed to basically hack your brain's relaxation networks. But we aren't stopping there. We're taking a fascinating turn to uncover the surprising and honestly sometimes hidden ethical catches of the AI-driven apps that are suddenly delivering these exact techniques right to our smartphones.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is a quick roadmap for our two-part journey today. We'll start with the midnight brain trap, move on to cognitive shuffling for sleep, compare NSDR versus meditation, look at the rise of AI therapists, and finally, get into those hidden ethical costs.
So starting with section 1, the midnight brain trap.
Look, insomnia is a universal problem, and there is absolutely nothing quite as frustrating as being wide awake while the rest of the world is peacefully sleeping. Have you ever been trapped by that 3 a.m. overthinking, just staring at the shadows on your ceiling? Or maybe replaying some incredibly embarrassing thing you said back in 2014? We have all been there. In fact, a 2024 poll found that 57% of Americans wish they just got more sleep to feel functional during the day. So you're definitely not alone.
But honestly, the numbers get even more stark. 80% of adults deal with the sleep-disrupting overthinking at least once a week. Your brain just shifts into overdrive, clinging to stressful thoughts, replaying awkward moments, or stressing about tomorrow. It's essentially refusing to let your body power down into sleep.
Moving to section 2, cognitive shuffling for sleep. So how do we actually fix this? Well, instead of fighting the thoughts, which usually just makes us more anxious anyway, you work with your brain's natural tendency to generate them. This brings us to a super practical technique from cognitive scientist Dr. Luc Baudon called serial diverse imagining. And here are the mechanical, actionable steps you can literally try tonight. First, when you're in bed, pick a random, totally boring letter, like B. Second, visualize completely unrelated words starting with that letter. A basket, a buffalo, a bubble. Just picture the item briefly. Whatever you do, don't invent a story around it. And third, if you run out of words, no big deal. Just pick a new letter and start again.
And this brilliantly illustrates why this technique is so highly effective. As Dr. Jessica Morris from the National Sleep Foundation points out, you are essentially tricking your brain. By using cognitive load displacement, you're occupying your working memory with random, low-stress thoughts. Because your brain is so busy visualizing a buffalo or a basket, it pulls energy away from the emotional centers that trigger anxiety and keeps them from keeping you alert.
Now, another great tool for that midnight brain trap is the body scan meditation, which is notably used in clinical trials by UCLA's Diana Winston. But unlike cognitive shuffling, which distracts the brain, this is all about passive observation. You start by noticing sensations right at the top of your head. Then you just slowly scan down your face, your shoulders, and your arms. The goal isn't to force your muscles to relax. You're just observing the physical tension without judging it. Eventually, your nervous system calms down and you either drift off or just gently redirect any wandering thoughts back to your body.
All right, section 3, NSDR vs meditation.
We hear terms like meditation, NSDR, and yoga nidra thrown around all the time in the wellness space, and they kind of get mashed together. But neurologically speaking, they operate very differently. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast in the required effort and the time it takes to see results. Look at NSDR, or non-sleep deep rest. It requires zero effort. You just lie down, listen to an audio track, and it drops your brain right into a restorative theta wave state in a single session. Meditation, on the other hand, that takes high effort. You have to actively keep pulling your focus back, keeping you in an alpha brain state. And research shows it actually takes about 8 weeks of active, daily practice to see measurable cognitive benefits.
You might also be wondering, okay, so how is NSDR different from yoga nidra, since they both take zero effort and target theta waves? Well, Stanford neurobiologist Dr. Andrew Huberman actually coined the term NSDR by taking the ancient practice of yoga nidra and stripping away the traditional spiritual elements, like setting an intention or a sankalpa. So basically, yoga nidra gives you deep rest within a spiritual framework, while NSDR is a purely secular version, fine-tuned strictly for neuroscience outcomes.
Which brings us to section 4, the rise of AI therapists.
We've talked about the practices themselves, but now we really need to look at how we're accessing them today. We are witnessing this massive shift from individual biological habits to highly commercialized products in the smartphone app ecosystem. It's a bold pivot in human behavior, and it absolutely forces us to ask, what happens when we outsource these deeply personal biological processes to tech companies?
Well, for starters, the market is completely exploding. The AI mental health app market was valued at $1.27 billion in 2023, and get this, it's projected to hit a staggering $8.47 billion by 2032. With over 60 million adults in the US experiencing mental illness yearly and traditional therapy being notoriously expensive and hard to access, apps like Wysa and Wobot are stepping right into the gap. They're providing scalable, highly accessible care to millions.
And that leads right into our final section, Section 5, the hidden ethical costs. Because, look, this incredible accessibility, it doesn't come for free. These highly accessible mental health apps come with severe and often completely invisible ethical risks. Researchers recently conducted a massive study using a natural language processing, or NLP framework. They analyzed nearly 66,000 user reviews of mental health chatbots. By training a model to read these, they mapped the latent themes in what users were casually typing directly to real-world ethical concerns.
If you look at the most common words generated from those user reviews, you'll see people frequently mentioning feeling helped, good, and great. So, on the surface, the apps are doing their job, right? They're providing comfort. But the NLP sentiment analysis revealed major blind spots. The study found that even though users feel helped, our traditional medical ethics frameworks are totally unprepared for the modern realities of AI.
So the crucial point is, we are facing a totally new frontier of ethical dilemmas. The core concerns flagged in the data include data privacy and consent. Do users actually know how their intimate data is being used? Then there's algorithmic bias, where an AI trained on limited data might recommend harmful care to minority populations. There is a glaring lack of clinical oversight, with many apps skipping clinical trials entirely. And honestly, the wildest one is emotional dependency on AI. Users are forming intense parasocial attachments to their chatbots, sometimes even preferring the AI over interacting with actual friends and family.
And if you think the privacy concerns are just theoretical, check this out. A 2023 investigation highlighted in the research revealed that 72% of mental health apps shared user data with third-party advertisers, and often that was without explicit or clear consent. Your most vulnerable 3 a.m. thoughts and anxieties could literally be packaged up and sold.
The researchers basically concluded that our existing ethical frameworks, the rules designed to protect patients, are fundamentally failing to capture these emerging AI challenges. While these apps absolutely succeed in democratizing mental health tools and teaching things like cognitive shuffling, the NLP study proves that our ethical guidelines simply aren't keeping pace with the rapid advancement of the technology.
Which brings us to a really critical crossroads. As AI increasingly steps into the role of our personal therapist and our 3 a.m. sleep coach, we have to ask ourselves, are we sacrificing our deepest privacy for the sake of a good night's rest? It is absolutely a trade-off we all need to consider the next time we download a little digital peace of mind. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.